Yeah. Thanks. Karen, so good to see you. Welcome to the Leaders Lab.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited about this discussion.
I know we just started talking. We're just getting to know each other. And what I was saying to Karen, which we got a little bit of a laugh out of, is I'm like you're one of those spiritual people that somehow keeps it grounded on earth. You know what I mean? And I love the woo woo side. I really do. But no, all woo woo, no practical application gets too woo woo for me. And the
Oh
thing
yeah,
I
it's
love about your
irritating.
work, yeah,
Because
and
you're like, okay, well, great, but how do I do that?
yeah,
You know?
what problem does this solve? Or.
Exactly.
Well, how did you get into all this work? Where do you come from, and what did your career look like early on?
Yeah. Okay. So I was not planning to do this.
Yeah,
Okay. So just
yeah,
for everyone to know, I actually was trained as an attorney, and that is definitely not the spiritual realm. I have owned and sold a couple of businesses, and the one that's most recent, before Spherical Luminosity, which is the endeavor that my husband Chris and I have created, it was real estate. So we used to help people buy and sell homes in San Francisco. And we did really well. So, I mean, from the outside, it looked pretty spectacular. Like we had an almost 90% referral rate. And if you're an entrepreneur, you know what that means.
oh
It
yeah,
means that your clients love you and they're referring their friends to you, which means it's a very high level of trust and also a very high level of responsibility and accountability for us to like maintain the referrer's referral, right? Because if you
yeah,
screw that up, well, then you just toss that relationship out the window.
sure.
So, it was a really wonderful practice. We had a small team. We were one of the top producers in San Francisco. We were making a lot of good income. So on the surface, everything is looking really fantastic, right? And of course, at this point in time, I'm a curious person and I dove deep into the world of personal development. And also the world of the woo-woo, as you said, right? Because I was
Yeah,
like, well, what kind of tools are out there?
sure.
And what happens when you start applying all of them? Do things change? I'm kind of curious. And I'm one of those people who, and I realized sort of later on that not everyone does this, but if you give me a tool, I'm going to use it to see if it works
Yeah,
because why not, right? So anyway, I was implementing all these different things. And even though our lives looked amazing on the outside, for me personally, I was really struggling with scarcity patterns. So it didn't matter how much was in the bank account because there was a lot in the bank account. And that wasn't the problem. The problem was how I felt. So how I felt was just terrified that at some point our business was going to dry up and I would Excel spreadsheet like literally every night how many months it would take us before we
to
would
run
burn
out.
through our cushion and have to move in with my parents, which was like, like if someone asks you what's your like worst case scenario for me right there, I was like, oh my God, please let us not go
It's
there.
like the doom
So
plan. It's like the
yeah.
forecast to nothing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so that was my internal experience, even though the external view would be really, really sparkly and wonderful. And the other thing that was bothering me was, okay, so I'm in abundance, but I don't feel it. That's a problem. So I can never relax. So that means that I drove my team and I drove my husband, right? Because we were partners in business and in life. And any of you out there who are entrepreneurs who are in business with your significant other, that's really not an awesome dynamic to be running on any level. It's not good with your team and it's really not good with your significant other. And then, so I also was noticing that even though I was implementing all these different modalities, that we were hitting a ceiling in terms of what it is that we could create in terms of sales. Like we weren't getting as high-end clients as some of the other agents who were working less, doing less for their clients, and cared less. And I was like, well, what's going on with that? So we were hitting a ceiling. And I know we've just met, but as a person, I don't like ceilings.
Right, right.
I find them irritating.
Of
And so I want to
course.
get beyond them, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, so how do you move this sucker? So in any case, the universe is a funny thing. And so I kept asking the question to myself. It was an open-ended question, like, what am I missing? What's the thing that I haven't addressed that's keeping me in this place? And I kept asking myself that question without really expecting an answer. And then one day, as it would happen, I had come back from a journey to France, which was very pivotal, but we won't get into now. And I was at my acupuncturist's office. And as I was getting up from her table, she said to me, have you ever heard of frequency work? And it was kind of like one of those moments, Ken, I don't know if you've ever had these moments where time goes really slow, like things get really long. And for me, it was my little personal experience, the second one in my life, actually, where it felt a little bit like The Matrix, where he's like going back and the bullets are flying by him. It was like my very mundane version of that. But that's what it felt like. And so I knew in that moment, I was like, I don't know what that is, but I know that I need to. And so that's when I started really doing frequency work. And the thing is, the first time I listened to a meditation, I was just like, I didn't feel anything. I was like, okay. But the thing is, I knew at the end of it, something very different had happened. Like I knew that I had changed in a way that I couldn't exactly pinpoint. I know that sounds weird because usually I'm quite a feeler, right? Like I can sense things. But this, I was like sensing nothing. But at the end, I had such a strong knowingness that something had irrevocably changed and that I needed to keep doing it. So that was my response to it. So I was like, okay, well, this is my pathway to stop spreadsheeting. So let's do that.
Let's stop updating the doom prediction. You're like, oh, we're down to 8.5 months of payroll.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
It literally was like that. I was like, well, if we got sub 9, I would freak out. Yeah.
I can go hard. I can go hard on Excel. I completely relate. Usually for the upside more than the down, but I'm with you on it. I understand.
Yeah, totally. So I didn't expect to do any of this, Ken, to like get to my point of this story that you asked a question about many minutes ago, which was, I just wanted to feel better.
Yeah.
And so what was strange about frequency work is that it was a new version of me all the time without me knowing it, meaning like it was like my normal. I know that sounds totally bizarre, but I remember one day, like a couple months after I started and I've been like doing my internal work, like I'm a big fan of internal work. I'm like, it's important. If you want to experience something better, you got to be better, right? Like I knew that from my own experience. So I was doing my own internal work. And then a couple months in, my husband, Chris, says to me, hey, you haven't been spreadsheeting. Have you noticed that? And I completely had not noticed that, by the way. I was like, no, actually, I hadn't noticed that. And to me, it's these little internal victories that are huge wins. Everyone expects like the glamour of like from $0 to $1 million or whatever the thingy is, and that's awesome. I'm not putting that down. But sometimes it's these internal victories of like, my entire world has changed because I don't feel the drive to do it.
Yeah,
like I don't have that same level of fear.
Yeah, because you already had the outcome. You had the thing that people already want to see on Instagram. You had a nice home. You had a good practice. You were making lots of money. You had that already. It didn't. So you were looking to just feel better. You knew it right away with meditation. You said, when you talk about frequency work, how would you define frequency work?
Okay, you ready?
Like, what's different about that? And like, I get the idea of being in a good frequency and all that, but like, how do you define it?
Yeah, totally. So to define it, I'm sorry, it's just going to take me a couple of minutes to give context because it's a new idea.
Cool.
All right. So I don't think it's like a news flash to anyone that everything's vibrating, right? Like scientists have been talking about this for decades. All right. So the rate of vibration is the thing that determines the form. Right? So if you take something really physical like water, steam, the molecule vibrates really fast. When you slow down that molecular vibration, you get liquid water. When you slow that down, you get ice, form, solidity. Yes? So if you extrapolate that all the way out to the oneness, pure source, the divine, whatever you want to call that really high frequency or consciousness from which everything comes and to which everything returns, that is vibrating at a very, very high rate, which obviously we cannot yet measure with our physical human tools. So I'm going to call it the oneness. That oneness, in order to have something other than the one, needs to drop in frequency. It needs to drop in vibrational level. It needs to have a sense of otherness, like even for itself to look back at itself and be like, oh, that's one, and I'm separate from the one. You need a drop in vibration. So when that vibrational level drops, frequencies are formed. And when that vibrational level drops again, energy is formed, like what we talk about colloquially now as energy. And when that vibration drops even more, that becomes what I call physical form or matter, but also is your thoughts and your emotions. So frequency work is the work that happens at frequency level. Because, I realize that it's a weird like paradigm shift, but we always think, okay, I've got to address like everything on my to-do list. And when I do all those things perfectly, then things will shift at the higher levels of vibration, and then my life will change. It's actually the inverse. The higher vibrating order is what dictates. So if you have what I call a distortion pattern of low self-worth or scarcity, for example, like what I was running, at the level of frequency or the quantum, whatever you want to call it, if you don't address that, you're still creating down here at the lower vibrating order that experience in some way that reflects that distortion pattern. So what you have to do is release the distortion pattern at the level of the quantum or the field, and then your physical reality will reorganize around it. Now, I just want to make a little caveat here because you asked about practicality. So I think the other thing that happens a lot in spirituality is people expect their guru or their spiritual teacher to like bless them with some kind of holy water or like wave their wand around them or whatever. And then ding, you're going to be awake. And then all this glory is going to happen with like unicorns. Okay, so here's the thing. You have free will. Okay, for better or for worse. Okay, humans are funny. Right. Like sometimes we use it for great, and sometimes it's like we're real dumb about it. You know, I've been both. We all have. But the thing is, you have free will, and this is your journey. So the thing is, I will release it. That's what frequency work is. I release it at the level of the quantum or the frequency level. You have to participate because you have free will. So with your intention, you have to do something that I call confirm the removal of the distortion, which means be aware of the distortion in your field. Life will serve it up to you. You'll be like, oh, look, there it is, my pattern of scarcity, either in myself, meaning I feel scarce, someone comes into my life who's running a lot of scarcity patterns, a circumstance will show up where scarcity rears its head, whatever, life will serve it up to you. And for you to say, like, I no longer run that pattern. I am the co-creator of everything. So that does not need to be in my field anymore. Now, I realize for some people that this may sound a little bit like, you know, Magic Kingdom time here. You know, like I realize it sounds a little far-fetched, but it's really not, because we are coming into a time in consciousness that we are recognizing that we co-create everything. Mm-hmm. So if you can have someone's help, right? Because really, this is about your journey, right? I help, but I just want to make it really clear, because in the spiritual world, it's all about weird codependency on the healer person. It's not about this, okay, people? This is about your path, your empowerment. So as much as I help you at the level of the field, which gives you a little boost of acceleration or a huge boost of acceleration, you have the authority to release it out of your field. And when you do that, it's like super fast. Your physical reality starts to change really quickly because you're taking your authority, your sovereignty in your space and using it.
Right. And instead of reacting to it. And because it sounds like when you got into meditation for the first time, mm-hmm. even though you couldn't explain it then or know what it was, it sounds mm-hmm. like, and just tell me if I've got it right or wrong, but you said you have to drop down in order to sort of change the pattern. And I'm paraphrasing right now, but you have to mm-hmm. lower the frequency, right? In order to, so by going into this meditative state, instead of the mm-hmm. worker bee, I'm going to push through it, give me another column on my spreadsheet. Mm-hmm. You were able to slow down long enough to, even though you didn't manifest it necessarily or intentionally grab something and pull it into your universe, it just happened and it felt good. And then you went, well, I'm going to keep doing this because it feels pretty good. And then after a while, you drop the spreadsheet thing without even intentionally trying to drop it, because you know how no longer had the need for like that level of certainty. Like you
so a whole bunch of, exactly. So what I would say is, as the receiver of frequency work, we like to think of things as humans as very linear. Like this thing will do that thing. You know what I mean? Like something A will cause B. But the way the universe works is it's kind of like a bowl of spaghetti. It's not like a straight line. So let's just say, because I perceive at the level of frequencies, at the level of the quantum, so I can release things at that level. So let's just say that I'm working on someone and I'm releasing low self-worth, right? Because you don't feel like you're enough and you always have to keep doing more and more and more to prove that you're worthy. Let's just say, for example. And by the way, when we have a session together, or if you're on a group frequency calibration, which is like a meditation on steroids, because it's not just meditation, I'm actually doing something, right? And you're doing something. So when that happens, you're actually releasing things at the level of the field. Now, you may not feel it. You as the listener may be like, okay, she told me to focus on my heart space, right? Did that? Right. Don't really perceive a difference, right? Like you may not be able to perceive the difference, especially at the beginning, right? Because you're not used to it and you're running a lot of distortion patterns. So you may not perceive it. But what happens is when I release, let's say, low self-worth, right, for you, it's going to have legs. It's not just like the one thing that shows up for you where you have low self-worth. Like, I have to drive myself and my husband to work really hard, for example, because I don't feel like we're ever going to be enough, for example.
Right.
It's going to show up in other ways. Like, it's okay for me to make a mistake in front of a client. It's okay for me now to be able to go to a friendly bowling match and not feel like I have to win every single game. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's not like it impacts one thing. Like, you might start because you want one thing to change. It's all connected. Yeah, it's that soup. And so it's not like what you're doing as the person who's confirming the removal, who's receiving it. It's not like you're dropping the vibration. It's more like you're aware of yourself, like mentally, emotionally, physically, right? In the physicalness that you are. And you're like, in the density of the physicalness, I choose to, with my free will, like release the last bit of distortion, which has to do with the density that's you. Does that make sense?
It does. And I completely sidetracked you on your career talk, though. Where did you go? So you were doing, so when you started getting into it, and you were like, okay, this is my jam personally, right? You weren't doing it professionally yet. Where did it go from there? And when did you decide that you were going to flop careers completely?
Yeah, I know. Okay, can I just tell everybody, I'm of Chinese descent, okay? So to swap careers into something completely unknown is like totally, it's like totally terrifying, okay? Yeah. And like not what my grandmothers would have been like, that's a good idea.
Especially when you were, sounds like you were, again, on paper crushing it in the first, it's not like it was going bad, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm really type A. Like, I had a 5-year plan, like seriously. Right. Excel spreadsheet, like I knew exactly what I was achieving it every year. So yeah. Anyway, but the amazing thing is, okay, so to answer your question, I'm sorry, I'm answering very in the feminine. So you asked me what happened in your career. So like I said, I was doing frequency work for me personally, right? I wasn't trying to gain any outcome other than that, right? Feel better. That was really my only outcome. But because I am the person I am, I'm kind of intense. And I was like, well, let's see what happens. Like, how does life change if I just keep releasing more of my distortion patterns? Let's just see what happens. So after about 2 years of intensive, like, internal work, right? Because that's what frequency work is. It's the examination of self, releasing distortion patterns, etc. I was a friend of mine told me about another meditation retreat unrelated to frequency work. Okay, so it's a teacher I've never heard of, but as soon as I saw it, I knew I had to go. Now, I just want to tell everyone, this is a 12-day meditation retreat in Sedona. And by the way, I'm living in San Francisco. And if you have a small business or a big business and you run it, you know what it means to take 12 days and go completely offline. Okay, completely offline. It's a lot of work. It's scary. Yeah. And then you got to do all the work to delegate and set it all up and get it all running because you're gone, right? The whole thing. So I was like, all right, well, for some reason, I just feel called to this retreat. And the reason I knew that it was important is because as I got closer and closer to the retreat, my internal resistance was going like off the charts. Like, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know who I don't know what he teaches. Like, 12 days is a really long time. We're getting really busy again. And all that stuff came up. So I was like, okay, I know myself well enough and I've done enough personal work that I know sometimes or often when I have a lot of resistance, something big is about to change. So I'm just going to hold on to my knowingness with my fingernails and go to this freaking retreat. So off I go to this retreat. And in this retreat, I walk in and at this point, because I've released enough of my distortions, and this will happen for many of you if you start, your intuition gets really clear, right? And you start to know things for some reason that don't really actually make logical sense, but you just know that you know. And you trust that more. And so when I walked into that room, and it was like 180 people in this room or something like this, I was like, whoa, this field of energy of this group is unstable. So meaning that this particular meditation retreat was all about piercing the absolute or piercing back into the oneness, let's just say. And I was like, there's no way that this is going to happen in this group. It's too unstable and the resonance is too low. There's a lot of like ego mind chatter of like what awakening is supposed to look like and the desire, like a real yearning for awakening and what it means about people. Like, people had a lot of ego stuff. They hadn't cleared up about it. So I was like, okay, I don't think I should really be at this retreat. Okay, so first of all, in that moment where I was like, I don't think I should be at this retreat. I think I need to go meditate on my own. That in itself was a confirmed removal, because all my lineage patterns would be, you sit your ass at the retreat, you take notes, you then implement everything that they told you to do,
Yeah.
and you
Take
do it
the
over
good,
and over
leave
and
the
over
bad.
again.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Do all the stuff, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that I even chose to not go back was like huge for me personally. All right, so that's an example of confirming the removal. So I decided, okay, no, I'm going to listen to my erroneous. I'm in the studio apartment in Sedona for 12 days. When do I ever get 12 days to meditate? Never, right? My life is really busy. Never. So I'm just going to take the opportunity, because obviously I'm here for a reason. So let's just use the opportunity. So what happened was, in a meditation that I did not anticipate, which ended up being 9 hours long, I actually pierced into the oneness. So I moved from my ego self, like Karen, like the identity of me, and then moved up enough in vibration so that I pierced through what I call the veil of forgetting, where you forget that you are part of the oneness. And it was terrifying and exhilarating all at the same time, because if you have to let go of who you think you are and you're a control freak like I was, that's a very hard thing to do, because you think, what happens if I go insane? Like, it's possible.
Right.
And then and for me, I had to be like, do I want this? Like, I don't know if I can do that. And I had to really allow myself to cry a lot and be scared, and then to surrender. And then that's when I moved through the veil of forgetting. And in that moment,
I'm sorry, did you
No,
sit
please.
with the intention of doing that, or of meditating for that long, or were you just like, I'm going to do 45 minutes, and it just,
Yeah.
you just run
Yeah.
with
Well,
it?
I went in, it was in the morning when I started, to your question, right? So it was in the morning. I got up, I was like, okay, I'm going to meditate. So I sat on my little couch thing, and I was like, I'm going to see if I can raise my resonance so I can pierce the veil of forgetting. That's all I thought to myself. I didn't know how long it was going to take. I didn't know if I could do it. I don't even know why, Ken. I thought it was a good idea, or that I even had
You're a high achiever. It's
yeah,
another level.
I guess so. I was just like, I don't even know why I thought I could, like
Yeah.
I just did it. It was like one of those moments where I was like, that's what I'm going to try to do. And I didn't really question it. It was really strange. Because usually, I mean, we all run self-doubt, right? But this time I was just like, worst case scenario, I'm going to try it again tomorrow. So anyhow, that's what happened. And when I went into this space where I was part of the oneness, it's going to be so hard for people to understand, because it's a feeling, but I literally lost me, like Karen. And it was like I was breathing with everything, and everything was breathing with me. And I couldn't believe that I had forgotten that I was part of everything. I literally started laughing, like, because I couldn't believe it was so silly. It was like, how do you forget that you got a hand? Like, I mean, obviously you do. It's right there, right? And I just started laughing. And then if you'd looked in the window of my Airbnb, you would have thought this woman is insane. Because you're like sitting on this couch laughing my ass off, with my eyes closed. And then I started crying, because I couldn't believe that I'd forgotten that I was part of the oneness. And it was a lot of grief, actually. And after that, I was in that space for a while, and I realized, or felt, or was aware of, however you want to describe it, that everything was frequencies, and that I could make change at that level. And it wasn't like I thought it. It's not like I wanted it, because I was not thinking. There was no thinking. I was just like, it was kind of like, holy shit, I can make change to this life. I mean, it was just like an awareness.
It was a realization.
Yeah, exactly. There was no thinking process.
Yeah.
And so then when I sort of came back into my awareness of my body, and et cetera, my resonance dropped again, I looked outside, and it was kind of like the sun was setting. It was getting dark. And I was like, that's really weird. Because I'd gone into meditation when it was morning.
Right.
So I was like, what's going on with the light? So I looked at the clock and realized it had been 9 hours. I did not plan to go in for 9 hours. That was not my goal.
Right.
So it happened without me wanting to. And then to answer your question, what happened? So as the universe works to conspire sometimes when you're on the right path and you don't really know what the hell you're doing, which was definitely the case for me and is still the case sometimes for me, I happened to overlap with a friend that I hadn't seen for about 6 years in Sedona. And we were there together at the same time for 12 hours. So it was the weirdest thing. She said, hey, can I come visit you? And I'm like, sure. So she comes to visit. I've had this crazy meditation the day before. I'm perceiving everything still as frequencies. I'm like, that's really weird. Not what I was expecting. Okay. I had gone for a walk. It's Sedona, so I'm out hiking, right? I'm like, whoa, I can see everything as the illusion, but the illusion isn't menacing or bad. It's actually there for us to grow from. And I was like, I could see the spectacularness of it, the beauty of it, like what we've created as this like incredible playground and opportunity to remember who we truly are. So I was having like all this heart opening, right? I'm not taking anything, by the way, right? This is just like me feeling this way. Right. So in she comes, like, friend, haven't seen for a while. She starts telling me about some issues she's having. And I'm looking at her and I can see all of her distortion patterns. And I'm not looking at her with my physical eyes, right? So I can sense within her distortion patterns. I'm like, I don't know what caused me to ask this question, but I said, do you want some help with that? And she looked at me and she's like, yeah, I would. And I'm like, okay. So she was the first person I ever worked on frequency level. I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure that I can do this for you. And so I just did. It was just like the meditation. I didn't think about it. I was just like, just do it, like serve. So I did. And then I didn't think anything of it. She left. And then all of her friends start texting me for sessions.
Like, hey, I got something.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, like my phone's blowing up. What's happening, right? And so that's how it started. I didn't advertise. I didn't ask for it. I didn't have an end goal for the first time in my life. It just started happening. And so I was like, well, I need, I guess, a calendaring functionality.
Yeah.
So,
did you feel like it was, kind of a calling or something at that point because it came so natural and it came from, I mean, it was almost like a download, like, hey, here's a way you can see and feel things now that can help others.
Yeah.
And how long did it take you? Again, my linear, I do
Please,
think I like timelines when I'm talking to people, but because
Sure.
it helps me fill in the story. But
yeah, it's context.
When you go from, again, successful agency in the city, now you already had to go against your own resistance to make the trip, which for a minute you were probably like, God, I knew it would kind of suck, but hey, I'm in Sedona. So, right. I can make my own retreat. So you make your own retreat. It's life-changing.
Yeah.
And now you've got this gift. You've still got this agency. You've still got bills to pay. You've got your Chinese upbringing that says probably don't take a lot of chances from a career standpoint.
Yep.
What's that stage of your life like? And do they coexist for a while, or did you cut the cord?
They did.
Yeah,
they did. So, I think that a lot of people, when they think of these things happening, like it's going to be really awesome and amazing. And I'm not saying it isn't awesome and amazing, but it's also kind of overwhelming. Yeah. Because as you said, I'm running two things simultaneously. I'm like, okay, I'm aware that I have to serve in this new way. I'm so clear on it, right? And it's confirmed by the number of people who keep reaching out for appointments. Okay, great. And I didn't know anything then, right? That's what I was doing at the time. I was giving one-on-ones because that's what it was, right? I mean, I didn't have a breath to like think about like, what am I doing with this thing? So I was running our real estate business with my husband and starting this other thing at the same time. And let me just tell you, it hurt. Like, you're running kind of both ends, right? So I'm trying to like fit in these one-on-ones. I'm like, okay, I got to develop something other than a one-on-one because this is not efficient, right? I'm trading time for time. This is like silliness, right? So anybody who's an entrepreneur knows like you got to scale, right? Because if you don't scale, you're like screwed basically. Yeah. Because you're just going to like run yourself into the ground. So I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to scale and I need to set up a website and what the hell is the name of the company? And all that sort of stuff that people don't think about it. I mean, it does take time and thoughtfulness and intention. So for about a year, I ran both at the same time. And then something happened. Again, it was sort of an interesting little test. Not test. It was for myself like a crossroads. Okay. So I knew that we were moving more and more into what it is that we're doing in Spherical Luminosity. I could feel it, right? I was just like, it's getting more and more and more and more momentum. People are asking for more things. You can just tell. Okay, so, and at around the same time, my husband, Chris, and I had been feeling, I think we're going to leave San Francisco. We're going to move. But we didn't know where. So anyhow, he's the one who typically has these flashes or these downloads or these knowingnesses, whatever you want to call it. And he realizes, okay, I mean, this is about 2018 now. He's like, we need to move to the big island of Hawaii. I was like, oh, okay. So the next, but he's always right. I mean, he's never been wrong when he has these knowingnesses. So I'm
That's
like,
also
okay.
a very easy one to get on board with, right? I mean, it's not like you said Wichita or something, you know?
Exactly. But I mean,
I think we should be in Wichita. No, I don't care what the universe gave you.
Exactly. The universe gave us something really delightful. And actually just before COVID too, which was like kind of perfect because nobody knew that was coming down the pipe either, right?
Yeah.
So anyhow, by February of 2019, to give you timeline, so all of 2018, I'm working both. 2019, we decide to move to the big island of Hawaii where we know no one. So we don't have community there. We don't have friends there. And we make this leap where we're like, okay, we are giving ourselves 1 year in Hawaii to see if Spherical Luminosity will work. And we will tell everyone in our real estate business that we are taking sabbatical for a year. We arranged for another team to take care of our people in that year, and also had a plan to sell the business should that actually work out, meaning Spherical Luminosity take off.
Yeah.
And it turns out through a series of non-linear events that Spherical Luminosity does take off, and it becomes very successful very quickly, and we end up selling our real estate business. So that's how it happened.
Amazing.
In
And
time.
so it's been 5 years now, solely in that.
Yeah.
That is so cool. So when people go to work with you, what does it look like now? Because now it's a big business. It has scaled up. It's not like they just, it's not like you're Zooming everybody, right? So
no, we're not. So how it looks is, so that we offer a whole gamut of things, right? So we create a lot of free content because I recognize that, you know, if I were talking to myself 5 years ago and you told me about this, I'd be like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever.
Right.
Let me see what it's like, right? Because I would want to know what it was like.
Right.
Wouldn't you? You know? So even at the very beginning, I knew that. I was like, we have to give the work that I give for free in some way. And so we have a free podcast, just like you do. And at the end of every podcast episode, I give a group frequency calibration for free, meaning it'll sound to you like a meditation, but I'm doing frequency work behind it. So we have over 200 episodes now. And can you know what it's like to put out a podcast episode every week?
Sure.
It's a labor of love. So anyway, we have over 200 episodes. So you have all that work for free. We also give YouTube Live. So a lot of this will look like group frequency calibrations or like group meditations. And actually, it's interesting to me because a lot of people in our culture will want one-on-one sessions with me, which, you know, I understand because I would have wanted that too. But the thing about a group frequency calibration is the power of the mastermind because it's a microcosm of the oneness. Right. Okay, so meaning we are one. I know we don't feel like we're one right now, especially when it's so divisive and so polarized and so us versus them. It doesn't feel like we're one, but we really are. And so the thing about the mastermind is when you come together as a mastermind to clarify your connection to pure source and raise your frequency resonance and release distortion patterns on a particular thing, other people in the mastermind will have different strengths and weaknesses from you. The distortion patterns will be similar, but there's like so much more momentum in a mastermind than by yourself, right? They're not the same as you. They are in some ways, but they're not. And the crazy thing about these group frequency calibrations is that you get so much more momentum than on your own because you get stuck in the same place over and over again with your distortions. And yes, you can release them. And yes, you can have specificity and that helps. But if you combine the one-on-one, which is specificity, and then group frequency calibrations, it's a lot of momentum. Right. So we have anything from the free all the way up to what I call the Limitless Potential Mastermind, which is our most advanced mastermind, which is a group of 12. And then, of course, we give live retreats and live and also online classes, that type of thing. So it's a whole gamut.
I would think that it is the divisiveness that actually makes the group impactful, our daily divisiveness, because we all want to work from home. We all want one-on-one coaching. We're all like, we're so very in our own little bubbles that, I mean, I would think getting into something like that, but I understand the nudge. Cause at first I'd be like, no, I'll just pay a little more. Just do it for me. Right. Like,
yeah, totally.
We just have a tendency to do that.
Absolutely.
This work is so amazing. I'm curious for you personally now, when, having been at this level of frequency and vibration.
Yeah.
And but life happens, right?
Yeah.
People cut you off in traffic. I don't know if you have
Yeah.
kids, but kids do what they're going to do and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When you get to the level that you're at in your mindfulness now, it's not like it's an iron shield. I'm assuming your
No.
rebound potential is just a little faster because you've got different tools in the toolkit, if I'm saying it right.
Yeah. So everything changes. So first of all, I don't claim to be like perfect in any way, and
Sure.
nor do I claim to be like some like super enlightened being that isn't human. Like I'm
Right.
still human. We all are. That's part of what you wanted to come here for, right? Like you
Right.
wanted to experience the messiness of human. So what happens for me, and I'll speak as like the former control freak because I think that people can relate to it. Okay. So what's changed for me is ease. So I have much more spaciousness of time. So before, like I said, I had a 5-year plan. My days were split into like minute increments. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was a very organized person because I had such control issues, you know?
I do
So
not want to screen share my calendar right now. You're going to go, dude, here's a link to the website. It's pretty
yeah,
structured.
it's pretty structured.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I still have structure in my life. It's just what happens for me is I'm okay with a lot more flow and ease. And before I poo-pooed it, right? I was like, flow, whatever, right? Let's get some shit done, right?
Right. Right.
Right? Like that's how I would view the world, like honestly.
Right.
And so, for me, what I've come to realize in releasing my distortion patterns, especially around fear and control and low self-worth, because those are the things I ran a lot, is I stopped caring so much what people felt about me. And so I wasn't doing things to be perfect because I was trying to like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
meet that threshold of this is my standard, or however you want to describe it. I actually had more looseness, so I was okay being more transparent, being who I am. My sense of time like expanded a lot, okay, which was like a huge deal for me, right? Because I used to be overwhelmed by time all the time. Now, what happens is I'm not saying I never get triggered. Of course I do. I'm like a human being, right? So, but when it happens, I like immediately I can feel it in myself. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. What's happening? Because I'm usually good, like I'm right, like I'm in my
Right.
center. I'm aware of what's happening. I'm not shielded from it. I'm very aware of what's happening around me. In fact, I am very aware of a lot of things around me, but it doesn't influence me. Does that make sense? Because I'm so in my center. So
Yeah.
I'm like aware of all that stuff, but I'm not getting pulled in by the drama
You're
and the
observing.
vitriol.
You're not
Yes, not in it
engaging.
as much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, like you said, I'm human. So if I get triggered by something that someone says or something happens and I have a response, I can realize that I'm in the reaction faster, like way
Yeah.
faster. I'm like, okay, whoa, 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 what's happening here that I am now feeling defensive or oversensitive or reactionary for some bizarre reason that doesn't make sense, And instead of being like, I'm weak because I'm aware of that, I'm like, okay, where's the distortion that's causing that? Right? Where is it? Because I know it's somewhere. Because, someone else who had that exact same stimulus wouldn't necessarily respond in the same way.
Right.
I am responding in this way. Where the hell is the distortion that's causing that emotion and that thought? So I do the inner work, just like everyone else. Like I do what I teach, right? I'm
Yeah.
not one of these people who are like, here you go, here's some tools, enjoy, and then I'm going to go do something else on the side. That's not how it works. I do the same thing that I teach. So I'm aware of the distortion patterns. I clear it. And I'm not saying that frequency work is the end all be all. Dudes, do whatever makes like sense together. So I always advocate a multidisciplinary approach, right? So do frequency work. It'll give you like tremendous acceleration. Maybe you need to also do something like release emotions at the, cellular level. So do neuroemotional technique, do EFT, the tapping, get coaching, like do the things, because you're all of these things. You're human and you're spirit. So like if you really want to optimize like what your experience of life is, to me, it makes most sense to use all the tools available to you to do that. Like, why not?
Yeah.
And so the other thing too is that if I'm reactionary, which, like I said, doesn't happen as much, and I'm clearing distortions, and I can't, and I'm like, I'm stuck here. I ask somebody for help. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I need help here. So I'm going to go see my, NET person or whatever. I don't need it as much. The cool thing is I find that when you do frequency work mixed with different modalities, everything's faster. It makes everything faster because you're releasing the distortion at the level of the field. You're doing your internal work. You're using all these different modalities. So before it was fast, but now it's like freaking rocket fuel because it's like all things going.
Right.
You just have more momentum.
You're recognizing it faster. You have more tools to deal with it. You've been through it before. Yeah, it just goes quicker. The more you're talking about your early story, the more I'm realizing that I think I have a time scarcity issue. I'm very structured, but at the same time, there's flexibility within the structure, and there legitimately is, right? It's sort of like, this is the game plan for today, and I know it's going to change, so I don't freak out when it changes. But at the same time, I always feel like it's one thing to the next thing to the next thing, and I'm pretty present in the thing that I'm in, but I still feel up against this imaginary time deadline that I've probably self-imposed. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm the one that creates the schedule. I'm not working a 9 to 5 where someone's telling me when to show up. You know what I mean? And yet I still feel bound by it. And that's going to be a good area to explore a little bit more. It's been on my mind lately.
Yeah, for you, there's like a lot of, the scarcity pattern for you around time has to do, excuse me, I'm going to repeat that. So the scarcity pattern for you around time has to do with overwhelm. So I know it doesn't sound related for you, Ken, but it's kind of like, if you can manage your time, then you're not going to be overwhelmed. Then you can manage everything. Does that make sense? So
it makes so much sense you don't even know, because I have a talk about how much I hate the word overwhelm. I hate it. I hate even using it. Like I'll use different words around it, because to me, being overwhelmed is just fear of failure, fear of not getting stuff done. So because I so hate that word, I must master everything to not feel it. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And then you also have this pattern running where it's like so to you, the way you manage time is defended. So meaning it's a defense against overwhelm. Like you hold it like here away from you. I mean, I get it, because you're just like, if I can just manage it out here, then I don't have to deal with the fear that I'm going to like fail in some way. And then I'm not going to be able to catch up. And then, oh my God, it's like a freaking train wreck. And then all this chaos and like, and you have this running through your lineage too. So it's like, if you fail through your lineage, especially like, I'm just going to be really clear. It's not the same for women and men in the lineage. It's just different. Sure. So for you as a male within your lineage, failure is not an option. It really isn't, because it really means that you're like, it means all kinds of things. Like you're stupid, you're not enough, you know what I mean? It means all kinds of things about who you are as a person, okay? Not just like what you achieve, right? And so, so those are patterns. As you start to liberate yourself from it, if you choose to do that, then what would happen is you would feel less defended about time, and you would feel more at ease with, like, for real, like not like managing it, but like it becomes more of your ally. And you're like, okay, not only did this thing happen to me today, and it's also going to bleed into tomorrow, and so I won't be able to meet that deadline. It's okay, because you don't know yet what's going to happen, and you're all right with the not yet known, which is also a challenge for you. Yeah. Okay. So the not yet known is something that for a lot of people is a challenge, but for you, it's like running right in through there, through your patterns that are you. Yeah. And it's funny. I have this client. She used to be an attorney, and a litigation attorney, and had a really high success rate. Okay, so this is a little firecracker happening here. And she is in a very male environment and just like running herself ragged. She's like, I'm just gonna have to produce more and more and more. And she's, lawyers are billable hours. That's how they make money. And she had a real issue with time. And she was saying, and we did she's in my higher end mastermind, the Limitless Potential Mastermind. And one of the things we addressed was the addiction to stress. And she was like, oh my God. So she had a little integration detox period where she was like, I can't believe how addicted to stress I am, and how addicted to like controlling time I am. And once she released those patterns, she's like, I don't know what happened, but I've been trying for years to freaking relax. And I do things, and I have the vacations, and I give myself nourishing time and all that stuff, but I don't really feel internal relaxed. Truly. Like if I let go of this ball, like all hell's gonna break loose. She's like, for the first time, I've let go of the ball. Like I have just done it. So it's not, like I said, it's these internal victories, right? Does anyone see that other than her? No. But does it change everything in her world? Right. Of course it does. you
Right.
know?
It's changing the way she shows up at home. It's changing the way she feels every
Yeah.
day. It's changing,
Yeah.
everything.
How she is with her clients, what she creates, how inspired she is, when she feels like she has to be productive and put her foot down on the accelerator, when she can actually take it off and just be like, I'm off. All that stuff changes. And it's amazing to watch her grow because her business actually, since that retreat, has actually jumped. And she's been asked to speak in front of, she really loves to speak. And, publicly, she's now a nutritional health coach. But she now speaks in front of corporate audiences of like thousands of people. Like they just started calling her out of nowhere.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting what happens when we let go. And I know for someone like me, who was the antithesis of letting go,
Right.
that she's mirroring me in a similar way. It becomes this very different experience of life.
It's interesting. I really notice it when I do have time off and that amount of time that it takes to fully decompress. And what I mean by that is day one of a vacation is still 1 foot in, right? You're like, all right, let's just build in some admin time. And then after a while, though, I can actually let it go. And then you
Yeah.
can realize the contrast. But the thing you said that really caught me in that description was, yeah, I am okay with the idea of putting something off till tomorrow. Really am. I do it
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
You kind of have to, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're never going to
Yeah.
get everything.
Can't do it all.
I am not okay with pushing it off until tomorrow or the next day. And I don't know what that means, right? Like I need to have my hands around it. I'm not saying I actually need to. I'm saying up here I need to.
In your head, yeah.
In my head, it's like I don't want to push it to tomorrow, but what's the plan tomorrow, right? Like where are we in this 10-step process? Where are we picking it up tomorrow? You know what I mean? Like it's got to be clean.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
It's the dirtiness of it. It's I'll just figure it out when I get there tomorrow that freaks me out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The not yet known, man. I'm telling you.
That's the one that caught me when you said it. I'm like, guilty. Well, this is good. I feel like we could go for a couple of hours here. It's been so good to meet you. And I am
Likewise.
super interested in jumping in and learning more. We'll put all of your, links and socials and all that in the show notes so that people can easily find you. Anything else that you wanted to talk about before we get going?
Yeah. So one of the links in the description below is going to be a link to a quieting your mind meditation, and it will just help you come into your center. So, okay, I'm going to say something that is probably going to be irritating for some people, but I'm just going to go there anyway. The thing is, you have authority over who you are. Now, I know it sometimes doesn't feel like it because it feels like things are pulling at you and you've got 5 million things to do and like the kids, the work, the team, the whatnot, and all these timelines and blah, 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 right? And it feels like you're never going to get there. So here's the thing. Taking that little bit of time to yourself to come back into your center and really becoming aware of self, of your connection to pure source, however you frame it, fine with me. That's the most powerful thing you can do. Why? Because it has to do with raising your vibration, raising your frequency resonance. Your physical reality is a mirror of your vibrational level. So you can work your ass off. I'm not saying you can't get to a certain level of success and physical wealth with your will. Of course you can. But are you going to enjoy it along the way? That's the question that I have. Are you going to really have what I call true abundance, where it's like you get to experience not only the brilliance of life, what it is you get to contribute, the richness of your relationships, but you understand fundamentally in yourself how brilliant you are, how important you are. Because I think we forget in our little mind machinations that the oneness is not complete without you. You are very important, and the changes that you make, the resonance that you are at, has a ripple effect out into the oneness that you probably are not aware of. The higher your resonance, the greater that ripple effect. You are here in this lifetime, I believe, to awaken, however that looks for you, and to express yourself as clearly, as brilliantly, and as beautifully and uniquely as you. So there's no right path. There's only about the opportunity to clarify the resonance of who you are. So that's what I'd end with.
Whoa. That was really cool. I love that. I got goosebumps during that. Thank you so much, Karen. It's such a pleasure to meet you.
Likewise. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Hopefully our paths cross again soon.
Yeah.
All right. Take care.
Bye.